This is Axis and Allies Anniversary Edition 42 setup with the house rule hard up where everything costs 3 times their regular purchase cost. And we will start off slightly backwards because I realise that some people don't always watch my videos until the very end, where I put in my kind request. I will put that kind request in up front. I make these videos in aid of a charity called Cure Parkinson's. You can guess what they are aiming to do. If you happen to have a spare IPC to spend, then please send it their way. Thanks very much. Other than that, I don't blame you for not watching the videos right to the very end. Sometimes I can ramble. We are on the Japanese turn, and as you may remember from video number 4, there is an Axis aim of getting the 13 cities required for the projected win, one of which will be either Sydney down here, the not capital of Australia, or the Hawaiian Islands over here, or maybe even San Francisco. That's not going to happen in a month of Sundays. However, the Japanese are planning, and they've made their plans, and they are going to be going for Australia and Sydney itself. They have purchased this go 1 destroyer at 24 ouch IPCs. They've moved their 2 submarines into this sea zone around Okinawa as a dissuasion to these Americans to get involved any further in this attack, and brought 2 fighters over from the mainland, 1, 2, 3 onto Caroline Islands. They can't attack Australia from here, but they can help to defend the Pacific and really put a blockade on America coming over. They have moved 1 infantry from Borneo back to the mainland. It keeps these 2 transport ships, naked transport ships, away from this bomber being able to reach them. Japanese bomber, 1 man, 1 artillery, and this infantry unit here, I did it off camera, wasn't I, can all reach Australia on the next turn. 1, 2, and invade. This is sort of a crucial moment on this side of the map. There is a small chance of Russia. Well, there's a big chance of Russia actually doing the attack. There's a small chance of them making it succeed. They've got 6 guys versus 2 guys and a tank protecting this victory city. That could throw a spanner in the works. We shall see what happens. Next up will be Russia, who had lost their capital last turn. Let's have a little think about what they're going to do. Well, Russia in the end did decide to make an attack from Manchuria over into Kwangsu, to try to get Shanghai, a victory city, just to really to prolong the Allies' involvement in this campaign. However, they spectacularly failed in their first roll, losing 2 infantry, and decided, well, there's not a lot of point in continuing that attack really. 4 at 1 versus a tank and 2 infantry. Really, they're going to just try and hold on to Manchuria, I think, and just be a bit more of a pest for Japan. The attack has completely failed. The only other move by the Russian forces was to move a single infantry unit from the Ukraine back into the Caucasus to try and hang on, but I mean they're facing this lot. They're going to hang on for at least 3 seconds when the dice start to roll. I will see you after the German turn. Well, the German success was limited this turn, limited to being good one side, bad the other. On the good side, they took 2 tanks from Moscow and 1 tank from Bulgaria, Romania, brought it into the Caucasus, where there were 4, I think, Russian infantry. They were smashed in 3 rolls, but they lost 1 tank themselves in doing it. The other couple of tanks have moved from Russia up to Leningrad on the non-com move. I don't know why I left that one there, that was silly of me. They've moved up to here. They are going to try to defend themselves from this attack from the sea, which we think the Americans are going to try and come around. That may be enough to dissuade them. If it isn't enough to dissuade them, because they had their massive buy of 70 odd pennies from the Russian bank, they have enough to put in 2 infantry in there as well, having paid off the 3 damage to this factory and paid off a chunk of damage to this factory down here. The less successful run was down here. where, well, the air wing singularly failed to do any damage to the UK and American conglomeration in France. They had a limited success with their infantry artillery trying to push through again. However, yeah, it wasn't good enough, and the hit back by the Brits on their rolls rather than the Americans on their rolls was pretty spectacular. So the Germans have decided just to hold back there. Perhaps ask our friends, the Italians, to have a push through, please, this time. Otherwise, we won't be sending any grain for your bakeries. And obviously, Germany paid off some from their factory, but a few more infantry in place and a artillery unit as well. So they are getting stronger in Germany now. I think next go they can roll over France pretty much unopposed. Next up will be the Brits. I don't know what they're going to do. I really don't know what they're going to do. I'll have a think and see you in a minute. Well, it was a tale of woe for the Brits when they finally pulled their finger out and got an idea of what they were going to do. They purchased one more fighter for the mainland. It can help out the defence of France. It may be able to do some attacks later on. But we do think that we're looking at an end game situation here. They did fly their bomber over to the factory in Germany to try and do some more of this continued economic damage. Unfortunately, it didn't return and it didn't do any damage to the factory. Such is life sometimes. So next up will be the Italians, and we believe that they are going to this time obey their paymasters and attack from Italy into France. Well, sing the praises for the Italians, because they did obey their German paymasters. They did make an attack onto France and it succeeded. Yes, France has fallen. It's now an Axis region, meaning with the Caucasus taken last turn, all that remains is one city to be taken by the Axis for them to win the game on the projected score. Quick rundown what they did. They bought themselves one infantry for the money which they had, which is now increased by greatly. They had, for attacking purposes, 2 tanks, 7 infantry and artillery, and between those 8 units, can't count there, 10 units, they scored 6 hits, versus 3 infantry, 3 tanks, I think it was 4 artillery and a fighter that was in France from the combined Allied force, who only scored 4 hits in return. But it was enough to weaken them to a point where Italy were happy to push forward, and on the second roll, the units that they had remaining, which I believe was a couple of tanks and infantry, scored 5 hits again. They massively outrolled what they were supposed to do if you take average luck, and the return fire from the Allied, when it was weakened, their morale was shot, and well, so is France now. So Italy are now in France. It's going to be a major thing for America. I don't see there's any way that they're going to succeed in their attack up in Karelia. But you never know. That's their one shot of making this game go very much further. Whether they now try to pull their bombers across to the other side of the map, into the Pacific side, and try to steal a city from over there, well, it's going to take some thinking about. I shall see you after the Americans have done a lot of the thinking. Well, really, it's all over Red Rover. The Americans did come into Karelia and did try and attack here. They even brought a couple of bombers over from the United Kingdom into here. They managed to dodge the anti-aircraft fire, but their bombing was singularly unsuccessful, and the German 2 infantry, 3 tanks defended quite strongly, even with the Allied taking some of the damage on their bombers to try to allow them to get feet on the ground. It still didn't work. The Germany have held on to the Leningrad factory and the Victory City there. So it's really hard to see what the Americans, what the Allied can do over on this side of the map. Expensive rebuild. By the time they've got enough units together for an invasion force, Germany and Italy now, after taking the French region, will be mightily strong. There's no chance of a reprise there. So, looking over on the Pacific side of the map, we haven't completed that 13th city. I'm not going to bother doing that, even though there is a little bit of a play out that could it could vaguely happen. If America brought down 2 infantry on their 1 transport that's in the Hawaiian Islands region, Zone 53, they could bring 2 units into Australia to bulk up what's already here. However, you are only really stringing out the defence of Australia. Japan can bring a few units over this turn and some more units next turn. They have fighters here to attack this fleet. Should you leave that fleet here vulnerable and naked, that really should be moving back towards Washington. Because there are 2 Japanese subs here, there's a destroyer getting involved. America have got only a small buy, really not enough to do both sides of the map. Pacific, yes, as I said, you'll be stringing out a defence of Australia, and I don't want to do that. What I do want to do is tidy everything away and set this game back up again, because I have very much enjoyed playing with this hard up house rule, and I hope you give it a go too. I'll do a quick reprise of the rules to remind you that everything costs 3 times the IPC value. When you rebuild factories, you just pay them off as 1 IPC per damage, you don't triple that up. And with the Chinese forces taking 6 regions to put 1 infantry unit down on this tripled up playthrough, you pay them as a grade chip per region which they hold at the time. That I think is a good compromise. It's been great fun to play. As I said, I hope you give this a go too. So all that's left to say is thank you very much for watching. I will see you in the next 2 or less video sometime in the future. Until then, be cool.